Hey Care2, happy Friday. It is Halloween and we are 4 days away from Election Day. Thankfully, Eric has joined us again.
I'm back.
For the Rant and Rave, and we did coordinate on the
Yes, I called her this morning. I Twittered her. What you wearing?
Tweeted.
I tweeted you.
Yeah.
I tweeted you.
Right. I get to do the rant this week again, and guess what?
Ranting about voter suppression.
The sort of systematic nature in which you're sort of seeing these voter suppression efforts play out. Now, surprisingly, or by surprisingly I mean not surprisingly, this is all happening in swing states. So we've seen efforts afoot in New Mexico, in Wisconsin, in Montana, in Colorado, of course in Florida, in Ohio,
Georgia.
in Georgia. So this has been playing out in, of course, strategic and important states that are key battlegrounds. Fortunately this year, in most cases, those efforts have failed. And in some cases it's because Democratic secretaries of state, which oversee elections, they have sort of shut efforts down, and Ohio is actually the most prominent example I'm thinking of. New Secretary of State Jennifer Brunner. In 2004 it was Ken Blackwell, who was also the co-chair of the Bush-Cheney campaign in the state of Ohio, who was running the elections.
Yeah. Voter suppression in chief for Bush-Cheney.
So Brunner was in. She refused to accede to Republican demands. They actually took her to court. The state Supreme Court actually sided with the Republicans, and she took it to the United States Supreme Court, saying that to have to do what the Republican Party suggested would have created chaos because it would have 2 weeks out from an election. And so voting has happened. There's a lot of early voters who are now casting ballots in Ohio, and I think that's probably the most prominent example. The other really interesting thing that's happened in the last week is that the Bush, President Bush and the White House asked the Justice Department to look into voter fraud efforts, particularly on the part of Acorn, and the Justice Department actually came back and refused to do so, sort of making clear that they are, this year, unlike past elections when there was heavy politicization of the voting rights section, which actually came out and was part of the U.S. Attorney scandal, which we have been talking about. This year they're not going to have anything to do with it. So I'm very happy to see that that's happening. And the other thing I want to say, just as a tail end of this rant, in terms of you're seeing how there's been a response this year in 2008 to try to ensure that the voter suppression that has happened in past years does not happen, or it happens less than it's been happening. There's a new site called Twitter Vote Report, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with Twitter, it's a website where it's sort of microblogging. It's 140 characters. You sort of like, what are you doing right now? The idea is that you show up at the polls and you sort of can talk about long lines or talk about any problems that are going on. So it's really it's going to be a way for us to get a window into what's happening at various polling stations and locations on Election Day. And it's sort of the equivalent of, the analogy might be like we moving from fax to email, right? I mean, that's instead of like people
8-track,
right, exactly,
MP3,
right. It's like, instead of calling people being like, oh my gosh, this is going on, we're going to have sort of this instant and sort of universal analysis of what's happening. The other tactic I would say that the Democrats are using really leads right into the rave, because it's all about early voting.
Get your votes in.
Bam.
So I voted this morning. I'm one of the 20 million Americans, more now, but as of last night, 20 million Americans had voted early, either through early voting programs, which they have in a lot of states like Florida and Ohio, Colorado.
That's just what's been processed too.
Yeah, and or states where you can vote absentee if you have a reason, which I did. So I think it's amazing, the number of people voting early, because it says we are going to have record turnout, or it suggests that, and it helps offset all these attempts to suppress the vote and intimidate minority voters and tell people that, oh, Democrats vote on November 5th, Republicans on November 4th. People are doing that. There are flyers in North Carolina saying that. And this is a way to stymie these attempts to subvert our democracy by getting people out and getting their votes banked early. And the numbers are astounding. In Nevada, 43% of the people that have voted early are first-time or sporadic voters.
That's crazy.
So nearly half of these people are people that might just not have voted. And instead of worrying about, well, are they going to come out on Election Day? Done. They're already out. They've already voted. In Georgia and North Carolina, already, as of yesterday, 2 times as many people as had voted early in 04 have voted early. and is with today and tomorrow, which are huge early voting days, yet to be counted. So, and what's also amazing in those states, there's been a really high turnout of people that are first time or inconsistent voters. So I think this is just a fantastic thing for many reasons. It means that we're going to have more people voting than ever before. It means that these foul, vicious, vile creatures who are trying to suppress the vote will be less able to suppress the vote for these people who have come out and made sure that their vote's been counted. And it also just takes the pressure off of worrying about broken machines, bad weather, all that stuff. So it's good for our democracy, it's good for our communities, it's good for our country that as many votes as possible be counted. Because unlike the voter suppression movement out there, I think we firmly believe that voting should not be hard. It should be easy, and everybody should do it.
Right. Folks, get out and vote. If you need to find where your polling place is, there's a great website. It's called govote.org. So check that out. You can enter your zip code and your address, and it tells you where your polling place is. Very cool tool that we definitely encourage you to check out. And if you can vote early, go vote as soon as you can. We're actually going to probably be out with a special edition of our newsletter on Monday of next week in anticipation of Election Day, and we hope you'll sort of keep your comments and feedback coming, because we sure do appreciate it. So have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Halloween, and woo, yay,
Go
voting.
vote.